Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today, January 9th, 2025, and we're going to try to make sense of it all.
It's amazing how much can happen in just 24 hours. Right?
It really is. We've got escalating conflicts, political shakeups, natural disasters.
And even some pretty strange stuff, too.
Yeah, definitely some bizarre happenings thrown in there for good measure.
It's a wild world out there.
Let's just dive right in, shall we? Starting with the ongoing war in Ukraine, which seems to be taking a pretty intense turn.
Yeah, Russia launched a massive drone attack, a biggest one yet, actually.
188 drones. That's
a staggering number.
It really is. And while Ukraine did manage to neutralize a good chunk of them, 76, I think.
That's right. But it's still a significant escalation.
And then you've got Biden announcing these new sanctions against Russia. Over 500 entities targeted.
It's a clear signal that the U.S. is stepping up the pressure.
And, with Trump about to take office.
It makes you wonder how he'll handle this whole situation.
Right. I mean, his past stance on Russia has been, well, let's just say complicated.
And his recent comments about expanding American influence, possibly through force.
Talk about a blast from the past. Feels like we're stepping back into an era of territorial expansionism.
It's definitely raising eyebrows on the global stage, those statements about the Panama Canal, Greenland.
And apparently he's been putting pressure on Canada to join the U.S. It's,
unconventional, to say the least.
Yeah, a bit unsettling, actually. And while we're on the topic of unsettling, the Israel-Hamas conflict is showing no signs of slowing down.
The humanitarian situation in Gaza is absolutely devastating.
Over 46,000 Palestinians killed since that attack back in October.
It's a tragedy.
It really is. And it's easy to get caught up in the doom and gloom when so much of the news is focused on conflict and disaster. But there's some positive developments happening too, right?
Absolutely.
Like Lebanon finally electing a new president after 2 years of political deadlock.
Army Commander Joseph Aoun. It's a significant step towards stability for a nation that's been through a lot.
Exactly. It's a good reminder that even amidst all the turmoil, there's always hope for progress. Speaking of progress, I'm curious to hear your take on another influential figure who seems to be making a political splash, Elon Musk.
Oh, where do we even begin with Elon?
Right. First, he plays a key role in getting Trump reelected. Now he's setting his sights on Europe, much to the chagrin of some European politicians.
Some are even saying he's becoming more powerful than some governments.
Yeah, his influence is definitely spreading, which I guess is kind of the point.
Well, he is a disruptor, that's for sure.
Now, shifting gears a bit, we need to talk about those devastating wildfires raging in Southern California. 5 lives lost, over 130,000 people displaced, and the air quality.
It's a serious health hazard at this point.
A stark reminder of the very real impact of climate change. It's not just the big picture stuff either.
You're talking about those hot car components being a contributing factor to the fires.
Yeah, it's kind of scary when you think about it. Even our everyday actions can have these unintended consequences.
A powerful reminder that we're all connected in ways we might not even realize.
Speaking of connections, shall we take a little detour into the realm of the bizarre? Because even with all the serious stuff happening, the world still manages to surprise us with its absurdity.
Oh, always. Lay it on me. What's caught your eye?
Well, we've got identical twins spilling secrets during a game of truth or drink. A man in India discovering he has a uterus and ovary during hernia surgery.
Wait, what?
Yeah, I know, right? And how about the world's top chess player refusing to ditch his genes for a prestigious tournament? It's like a denim rebellion.
Some people just march to the beat of their own drum, even if it means potentially forfeiting a championship.
Makes you wonder what's going through his head.
Probably some brilliant chess strategy. Or maybe he just really likes those genes.
Either way, it's a good reminder that life is full of surprises. But before we get too lost in the land of the weird, I want to circle back to some of the more serious issues we touched on. Because honestly, it can feel pretty overwhelming to process all this, the wars, the politics, the climate change, and all the human suffering that comes with it.
It's a lot to take in, and it's natural to feel overwhelmed.
So how do we even begin to make sense of it all? How do we stay informed without getting lost in the negativity? What's the secret?
Well, there's no easy answer, no magic bullet.
Yeah.
But I think it starts with acknowledging that feeling overwhelmed is okay. It's a normal human response to the state of the world right now.
Right. I mean, we're not robots. We're not designed to process this much information, this much intensity all the time.
Exactly. And once we acknowledge that, we can start to shift our focus from feeling overwhelmed to feeling empowered.
Okay, I like that. Empowerment. So how do we get there?
It starts with knowledge. with understanding, with diving deep into these issues, instead of just skimming the surface.
So it's not about avoiding the news, it's about engaging with it on a deeper level.
Exactly. It's about moving from being passive consumers of information to active participants in the conversation.
It's about becoming informed citizens, not just spectators.
And that's where the real power lies. Because once we have a deeper understanding, we can start to see the nuances, the complexities, the interconnectedness of these seemingly disparate events.
We start to see the bigger picture.
And then we can start to identify opportunities for action, for making a difference, even in small ways.
So it's not about feeling powerless, it's about finding our own unique ways to contribute to positive change.
Absolutely. Because every action, every voice, every choice we make has the potential to create a ripple effect.
It's a reminder that even in the face of global challenges, our individual actions do matter.
They absolutely do. And now, before we move on to the next part of our deep dive, I want to highlight one piece of news that might seem small in comparison to the global conflicts, but carries significant weight. President Biden, despite stating that he could have defeated Trump in the recent election, expressed some serious concerns about Trump's fitness for office.
That's right. It was a pretty pointed statement, even if it did come a bit late in the game.
It reflects a sense of anxiety that many are feeling, regardless of political affiliation. There's a genuine concern about the direction the country is heading in and what another Trump presidency might mean for America's role in the world.
I've definitely picked up on that from our listeners. People are looking for answers, for guidance, for some kind of roadmap through all this uncertainty.
And while we can't predict the future, we can offer context, critical analysis, and encourage our listeners to think for themselves.
That's what the deep dive is all about, right?
Yeah.
Empowering our listeners with knowledge and insight so they can navigate this crazy world.
Exactly. Because at the end of the day, knowledge is power. And the more informed we are, the better equipped we are to face whatever challenges come our way. It's been quite a ride so far, hasn't it? Drones, wildfires, political dramas.
It's like the world decided to throw everything it had at us today.
Yeah.
All in the span of, what, like 12 hours?
It really makes you think, doesn't it, about how interconnected everything is, how one event can ripple out and affect seemingly unrelated things on the other side of the world.
Speaking of interconnectedness, I'm curious to hear your thoughts on something we touched on earlier, the whole Trump situation, and what his return might mean for global relations.
Yeah, that's a big one. His America First approach, his talk of territorial expansion, it's definitely unsettling a lot of world leaders.
It feels like a pretty stark contrast to the more collaborative approach that many countries have been striving for. There's this worry that his policies could lead to more isolationism, more protectionism.
And that could have a huge impact on the global economy, trade agreements, even military alliances. We're already seeing some pushback from Europe, particularly when it comes to his commitment to NATO.
It's like this delicate balancing act that suddenly got a whole lot more precarious.
Exactly. And all of this is happening against the backdrop of these ongoing humanitarian crises in Gaza and Ukraine.
It's heartbreaking. The images, the stories. It's a stark reminder of the real human cost of conflict.
It's easy to feel helpless when we're so far removed from it all. But it's important to remember that even small actions can make a difference.
Like donating to aid organizations, raising awareness through social media.
Even just having thoughtful conversations about these issues with friends and family. It all contributes to a collective effort to alleviate suffering and promote peace.
Right. It's a reminder that we're not powerless. We can choose to make a difference. Now, shifting gears a bit, I want to touch on a theme that keeps popping up today. The intersection of technology, politics, and power. It's like these lines are getting blurrier all the time.
It's the defining dynamic of the 21st century, wouldn't you say?
I think so. We see it with social media's influence on elections, the growing power of tech giants like Elon Musk, and the whole ethical debate surrounding AI and data privacy. It's both exciting and a little bit terrifying.
It's like we're standing on the edge of a new era, full of potential, but also a lot of unknowns.
Exactly. And It feels like we need to be having more conversations about this, not just policymakers and tech leaders, but everyone.
Absolutely. We all need to understand the power dynamics at play, ask critical questions, and advocate for policies that ensure technology is used for good.
Speaking of power dynamics, I keep thinking about Trump's whole thing about expanding American influence, potentially even through military force. It makes you wonder about the future of global power structures, about America's role on the world stage.
Yeah, this idea of a more assertive, even imperialist America is causing a lot of anxiety globally. Some countries might welcome a strong U.S. presence, but others see it as a threat to their sovereignty.
It's messy, that's for sure. And it's important to consider all those perspectives, to understand the historical context, and to have nuanced conversations about the potential consequences.
Agreed. And it's not just about the U.S. either. We're seeing power shifts happening all over the world, new economic powers emerging, nationalism on the rise, the growing influence of non-state actors.
It's a multipolar world, for better or for worse.
Exactly. And that means cooperation and diplomacy are more vital than ever, but it also means that old alliances are being tested and new partnerships are forming.
It's complex, but it's also kind of exciting. It feels like individual citizens have a bigger role to play than ever before.
I agree. It's not just about governments and institutions anymore. It's about individuals using their voices, their skills, their networks to shape the future they want to see.
That's a powerful thought. It's easy to feel powerless amidst all this global chaos, but we do have agency. We can choose to be informed, engage in meaningful dialogue, support causes we believe in, and hold our leaders accountable.
And don't underestimate the power of simply being kind, compassionate, and understanding. In a world that feels so divided, those qualities can be radical acts of change.
So as we continue our deep dive, I want to touch on another big issue we've been circling, climate change. It's a topic that can feel incredibly overwhelming, especially in the face of events like these California wildfires.
Yeah, it's a tough one. The science is clear, the impacts are real, and it's easy to feel a sense of despair or helplessness.
But we can't give in to that. We have to remember that there's still hope. There are people and organizations all over the world working tirelessly to address this challenge.
And there's a growing awareness, especially among younger generations, about the urgency of the situation. They're demanding action, pushing for solutions, holding leaders accountable. It's inspiring, actually.
It's a good reminder that even when faced with these huge systemic problems, collective action can make a difference.
Absolutely. And speaking of hope, let's take a moment to acknowledge some of the positive things we've talked about today. The election in Lebanon, the resilience of communities affected by the wildfires, it's a reminder that even amidst the chaos and uncertainty, there are always glimmers of light.
Those glimmers are what keep us going. They fuel our desire to make a difference, to create a better world.
Well said. And as we head into the final part of our deep dive, I want to leave you, our listener, with a question to ponder.
Ooh, I like where this is going. Hit us with it.
Given everything we've discussed today, the wars, the political upheaval, the natural disasters, the tech advancements, the bizarre happenings, what does it mean to be a global citizen in the 21st century? What are our responsibilities? What are our opportunities? And how can we each contribute to creating a more just, peaceful, and sustainable world?
It's wild, right? Like all these events we've been talking about, they're not just happening in isolation. It's like they're all converging, creating this intricate web of challenges and opportunities.
You hit the nail on the head. We're living in a time where everything's connected, everything's influencing everything else, politics, economics, technology, the environment.
It can feel a bit overwhelming, to be honest. Like, where do we even fit in all of this?
That's the key question, isn't it? But here's the thing. We're not just passive bystanders. We have agency. Our choices, our actions, they matter.
Okay, so let's talk about those actions. We've talked about staying informed, having those difficult conversations, supporting causes we believe in. But what else can we actually do?
Well, one really impactful way is to directly support organizations doing good work on the ground. Think humanitarian aid in Gaza, environmental groups tackling climate change, organizations fighting for human rights.
And it doesn't have to be a huge donation.
Right.
Every little bit helps.
Exactly. And don't underestimate the power of volunteering your time or skills, too. Plenty of these organizations rely heavily on volunteers.
And even if you don't have a lot of time to spare, just sharing information, having those conversations with friends and family, even being mindful of our own consumption habits, all of that contributes to change.
It's about aligning our daily choices with our values, making those small, conscious decisions that add up over time.
And it's important to remember, we're all coming at this from different perspectives. We've got different experiences, different biases. We have to be humble, listen to each other, be willing to have those tough conversations, even when we disagree.
Absolutely. Finding common ground, building bridges instead of walls. That's how we move forward.
It all comes back to that shared humanity, right? Recognizing that we're all in this together, working towards a better future. And that future? Well, it depends on all of us.
It does. It requires us to be informed, engaged, and, hopeful, even when things feel bleak.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, I want our listeners to walk away feeling empowered, ready to take action.
The world's a complicated place, that's for sure. But we're not powerless. We have the ability to shape it. Let's do it wisely, thoughtfully, with compassion.
Let's face these challenges head on, knowing that we're not alone.
And remember, the deep dive never really ends. It's an ongoing journey of learning, growing, connecting.
So keep asking questions, keep exploring, keep making those ripples of positive change. Because together, we can create a world that's a little bit brighter, a little bit kinder, a little bit more just for everyone. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. Until next time, stay curious.